Lovely. Just waving away there. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on our podcast. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, do you want me to go first?
Why not?
So I am Suze, or Susie, as people call me. I'm vicar of St Mary's Church in Bridgewater.
And I'm Julie, and I'm the curate at St Mary's in Bridgewater. Been there for about 18 months.
What's the difference?
So we're both priests. So it's a bit like, imagine if you were training to be a doctor, you don't just become like the surgeon after you've just done your first initial training. It's kind of the same when you become a priest. So you kind of get ordained first as a deacon, and then a year later you become ordained as a priest if the bishop says that is okay to happen. And then you do something called a curacy, which is what Julie's doing, where you work alongside a vicar, so essentially doing sort of on-the-job training to then hopefully then become a vicar yourself. So that's kind of...
That's right. It's like a training post, really.
Right, okay. It's like a registrar and...
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A bit like an NQT for teaching and that kind of thing. So it's a 3-year post.
So you're at St Mary's for 3 years?
That's right.
As the curate?
Yeah, that's right. So I started in June 24.
So do you live locally?
I do. I didn't watch it. So I was travelling in every day for about 8 months. But I now live locally, yeah. So I'm in the parish.
Right, okay. And what's your dreams to become a...
What's my dream?
Pop star.
Pop star. Definitely not a pop star. I don't know, really. To be a vicar and to just, as to where, when, how, no idea. I just kind of just see where God leads, really. But it's just that, just that desire to just be alongside people and work alongside people.
But is there jobs out there for vicars? Because we all know that the church is struggling slightly at this moment in time.
Yes, it is, and obviously, and they're reducing posts all the time within our deanery. In fact, most deaneries we've had to reduce the number of posts that are there.
There are loads of jobs, though. There are tons of jobs still for people to take. And the church is in a good place as well. Like there's a lot of negative things that you see in the press, but there's actually really lots of positive stuff as well that's happening, and there are lots of signs of growth and lots of people exploring faith. So I think we're seeing lots of young people that are starting to come into church and sort of just wanting to, I think, get a bit of stillness in life. And particularly, we've got a really traditional service where we're a bit like, it's not our favourite service, if we're honest. Maybe don't...
Sorry, you just recorded that.
But it's not mine, it's not the kind of... It's very traditional. It has got very beautiful words to it. Yes. But what we're finding is there are young people, and particularly young men, that are turning up at that service, and we're like, this is not where we'd expect to find you. No. But I think they're just finding a bit of stillness and peace in the midst of the busyness of life.
Yeah, they come on that Sunday and I say, we've got a later service, got a bit more to it, and, hymns and a bit not quite so traditional, but they're like, no, we really like the peace and quiet of this service. Yeah. And there is something beautiful about it as you lead it, isn't it? You have to get up quite early and it's like, but actually, when you're there, it is a very beautiful service. It's just. Do
you take turns who gets up early?
Yeah, we do.
We've got a rota. I've got a rota, but I do mornings a bit better than you, don't I? Let's be honest.
I'm more of an evening person. I work late into the night and not so much of a morning. Well, I am a morning person. I have to be a morning person, but I prefer to be an evening person. So I'm a bit of a night owl.
So do you want to describe to people where the church is that you both work in?
Yes. It's St Mary's is right in the centre of Bridgewater, so it's the civic church in the middle of a town. Bridgewater is just an amazing place to be. It's a town that's got a really rich history to it. It's very rooted kind of community that live there. You get people that live there for generation after generation. But it is a place that has got quite high deprivation, so that brings quite a lot of challenge with it, but also an amazing opportunity as a church being in the centre of that place. And so it is, we often say, like on a day-to-day basis, we just never know what we're going to encounter, because we kind of open the doors and we just never know. Like every day we plan things and it never ever goes to plan, because we have all sorts of wonderful people coming into the space of the building, and we run things like wellbeing drop-in sessions. We run sessions for pet supporting parents. We do food for families. We do lots of work with the homeless. What else? There's just loads of stuff that's
there's a parent-toddler group. There's things. Yeah, there's just lots of good. I think it's interesting. I mean, I've worked in lots of different churches before this, and I've always had to go out. So I've done a lot of pioneering, and you go out because a lot of people won't come into a church, and so you sort of go out into the community, build relationships, and do work almost outside of the church building. but I've never been in a church. And I think a lot of that is because of the location, because we're right in the heart of the Bridgewater. But every day you'll get 2 or 3 new people just come in the church. Some people just want to come and have a look at the building and things. But a lot of people come in desperation. They want someone to pray with them, or they want to light a candle, or they don't know why they come. We've had a few people recently, haven't we, where they've just said, woke up this morning, God told me to come to church, here I am. Don't quite know why, but I'm here. So yeah, but it is an amazing place where people just come in. And yeah, we kind of have to, you never quite know who you're going to encounter or what conversation.
So what's your opening hours?
We try to stay open as much as we possibly can, but because of the nature of where we are being town centre church, it has to have somebody there to look after it all the time. So generally we're open from about unofficially 9 o'clock, officially 10, but people start kind of rocking up from any time from about 9 o'clock. And then most days till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes on a Thursday it's a bit later than that, but and sometimes, as we find, like on Sunday, when we happened to be the last people that were going to leave on Sunday, and then suddenly we had about 5 people come in all looking for something to eat, and so we kind of had to make the decision of going, okay, how do we continue to show compassion, because that's what we're all about, and loving and welcoming people whilst trying to also look after our own selves, and now we've got to get home and see our families, and sometimes it's a hard balance to sort of hold all of that, really.
That must be a really hard balance, to be honest, because how do you balance that? Like, what do you do in that situation?
On Sunday what we said, we can't give you hot food, we can just quickly give you what we've got. And actually one of the things that I deliberately did, this might sound awful, in my church, is that I've never done the health and hygiene certificate to use the kitchen. So when people come and ask me about making stuff in the kitchen, I'm actually not technically allowed to do it, which is actually quite a kind of boundaried thing for me, so that actually I can just say, look, the team are not here. They can't, there's nobody actually that can go and do that for you. I probably could make a sandwich and do that, but anything more than that, there are people that, can use the kitchen, and I'm not one of those people. Yeah, so that, I can use a coffee machine. I'm just about allowed to manage that. Otherwise, we try and enable other people to sort of do the things that they're good at.
We've got a huge amount of volunteer. We could not run without the amazing volunteer team that we've got, that are part of all the groups, because like Sue said, we've got craft groups, we've got parent groups, all kind of things, but we can't do it all, so we have to do it together. So we've got a brilliant, amazing volunteer team that come from wide and far, that want to be part of things. So we've got a team that want to be part of wellbeing, a group of people that like to run the cafe. We've got people running Baby Chinos, which is our parent-toddler group. We've got this lovely lady who's in her mid-80s who comes week by week. She absolutely loves it. And she gets on the floor with the children and she's playing with them. So it's that wonderful opportunity to enable people to come in and volunteer. We get quite a lot of people most days, I'd like to come and volunteer, what's going on in the church. So it's a really community sort of hub, really.
That is really good. I guess my other question around kind of boundaries is, how do you manage boundaries when people turn up and they are just turning up because they think they can get free food? It's not about faith for them. Yeah. Like, how do you is that something that you take a step back from? Is that something that it doesn't matter what someone's faith or beliefs are? How does that work?
Well, so from our point of view, from a faith point of view, I think, like when I look at the life of Jesus spent his life on the margins with the people that other people rejected. And so first and foremost, I think we feel a huge sense of call to be in those places. And I think sometimes people look at the church and they see this, they can see it as a bit of a stuck-up middle-class institution, because I'll be honest, it is in parts. And I grew up in a working-class house. We lived in a council flat, and I feel really passionate about the church being accessible and faith being accessible for people, no matter who you are and where you come from. And first and foremost, I think you can't have a conversation with somebody about faith. You can't pray with somebody if they come to you and they're hungry. You've got to meet those basic needs first. You know that. So there's no point in praying for hunger in our community and then going, oh, but sorry, we're not going to actually be able to do anything to challenge that injustice in society or offer you just something to eat. But I keep what you're saying is it is also it can be really tricky at times, because I think what we find, particularly in our work, I think with the homeless community, and as you already know, we have some wonderful people that volunteer to kind of help with that work. But every person is an individual, and you get some people that are very entitled and will come in, other people that are not, and really appreciate what they're being given. So we try to see everybody on an individual basis, not make judgment about people, but then we do have to put some kind of stricter boundaries in place to protect us and to protect them as well, because sometimes you think you're doing something that is really helping somebody, but actually all you're doing is keeping them in the cycle of the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, and trying to encourage people to be kind of part of that. And obviously there's certain times in the church when we've got like the parent and toddler group, or Friday tends to be funeral Friday, and, you know, so people can't, you know, come in. So there are boundaries in place for when we're open and when we're not available. But there is that kind of encouraging people to, not to just come and just receive, but to be part of it and come and volunteer. And that's where a lot of the volunteers have come from.
I think that sounds really good, and I think we've seen that in our charity. Is, you know, people quite often will kind of give back. Not everybody.
No,
some
not
people
everybody.
are.
Some people aren't in
entitled.
that place where they can do that, but there are. You can see where people, and so that's what we try to encourage. And some people have done their health and safety certificates. Some people are doing online courses and trying to, encourage themselves to move up. Really.
A sort of sense of value, it's self-value, and it is amazing to see, you see people that have not had the opportunity to get a qualification in their life, and they do a health and hygiene certificate course, and it's like, we had one woman who was like, I'm just going to pin this on my wall, it's going to be like the most amazing thing. She was really, really excited about it, and it's a really simple thing that you can offer somebody, come and do this, and then come and volunteer in our but that mutual sense of, it's not just us doing something to people, but it's us joining in this together. And I think I'm really big on sort of co-creating what happens in the space of the church, which is why things like our work now within the homeless community has really ramped up, because it's been pioneered by people that have been part of that community that have said, we want to give something back. And then we're kind of going, well, how can we enable this to work? And then try to support them in kind of running with that. Yeah. And that happens in sort of across lots of different things within the church. But then inevitably we do end up becoming involved in all of it as well. Yeah. We're talking about it on the way over. Yeah.
Kind of being part of it, but encouraging others to take the lead. But we can obviously support that and stuff, because we can't obviously do it all.
No,
it's not. And I think all churches, you cannot run a church. The vicar on their own cannot run the church. We have to have, people that are part of that and want to be. And we have a huge amount of people that are very committed to the church and the community. And the good thing is everybody's got different skills. So we've got some people who are really, they're passionate about the building and they want to preserve that, and so they put their energy into that. And then we've got people who are really committed to, the community and wanting to see the church open all the time, and and just seeing what the needs of the community are. And I think that's how a lot of the work that we've done has developed over the years, is seeing where the needs are and going with that. Ideas that people
It's
have.
quite interesting you say that, because I've always gone to church since I was a child. It's something that's always been part of my life. I don't go to church regularly anymore. But one of the things that I've always felt is that, and I don't feel this with your church, because I came to your church and I can see what you do and it's absolutely brilliant. It's a community, and it's a community building. And I think, that's so important. If your church is a community building, the community will come to that building, no matter what they believe or what they don't believe. It's like you said, somebody's interested in the architecture of it, or somebody's interested in setting up a little kids group or a mum's coffee and chat or something like that. And I think it's just so important to have that opportunity, and for the church to utilise their buildings, because 70% of them are shut all day, which is so sad, because there's people out there that I know are bored, lonely, would like to be part of a community, but they miss out, if you see what I'm saying, and don't know how to become part of a community.
My church in my village, we don't even have a vicar. So it's a vicar that's shared between, I think, about 4 different churches, I believe.
I think one of the big issues with the Church of England is that we've got too many buildings, essentially. The buildings were built at a time where everyone was going to church, and the Victorians built lots of churches for all these people to kind of go and worship in. But obviously, like with a change in culture and sort of in the world that we're in now, actually the way that people even engage with acts of worship, we're in a world where being online is it's just part of our everyday life. So I think people connect in different ways. And post-COVID, COVID changed everything, like in the way that people were engaging, and people that we would have seen coming week in, week out to Sunday services now perhaps only come once a month and things like that, because they've kind of they do things a bit differently in the way that they're kind of living out their life and faith. And that's not to say it's not any more important or any less important to them, but they might be connecting in with things going on in the week in the life of the church, and it's not just all about, we're not just about a Sunday service. That's, I think we're not a Sunday club for people to come to. We're about an active and kind of mission-fueled community that want to see a difference and change in society.
I guess my question is, and you might not know the answer to this, but the church in my village, for example, like I said, we share a vicar with, I think, about 4 different other villages. Is it one vicar rather than 4 because of demand? Is that probably the reason? Or is it that they can't recruit 4 vicars, so there's one at each church? You might not know the answer, I don't know.
Well, there'll be a number of factors involved in that. Finance will be an issue. So if each of those churches were full, if you had like 60, 70 people worshipping it, then effectively someone needs to pay for the vicar as well, because it is a full-time sort of job vocation that we're in. And sort of what used to happen traditionally was communities would always kind of fund that faith leader within their community, but that doesn't really happen in the same way today. So you end up, parishes, they want to sort of keep their church building and want to still be able to worship there. And there might only be a handful of people that want to do that, but that handful of people, they're not going to be able to afford to pay for a full-time vicar. So then the vicar, in order to have the kind of full-time post, will then have more and more churches as part of what's called their benefice. Right. I feel very, very, very kind of probably privileged is the word in some way. I've just got one church. I did have another little village church, but actually, because nobody was worshipping in that building, the church still exists in that place, but the building itself, it's got no running water, it's got no loos, and so it's like it's not fit for purpose. So how are we going to use that creatively? Because we've used the outdoor space of that the churchyard. We rewilded it and we've done outdoor things there. But ultimately, it was just not. If people aren't going to engage with it, then it was kind of like, well, that's costing a lot of money to keep that building going. Still costing money to keep it going, but there are other costs that we've lost by actually now saying it's a chapel of ease rather than a church. But it's a long process to do that. So it's but I imagine at some point I'll be asked to take on another church, because it's just inevitable in what's happening.
And that's what's happening, really. And I think because we're quite a rural diocese, a lot of vicars would have at least 2, 3, 4, 5. Really? On the Quantock case, I've got 9 churches. Yeah, which is hard for those communities. Obviously, a lot of them are quite small communities. Yeah. But and so a big job for the vicar is how to bring those kind of benefices together. And
of course, and also it's, if people want to worship on a regular basis, they then have to organise travel. If their vicar moves around every Sunday to a different place or whatever, it makes it more difficult for people to go and worship, I imagine.
Well, I suppose that brings together that bit about making sure that the churches that you are managing, because that's effectively what you're doing, you're managing it in a way that introduces more people, that brings more revenue in, that also alongside of that brings more of a community together, which has a value, really, doesn't it? Whether it's a monetary value or an emotional value, it still has a value. But the bigger you build your church, surely the better that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that a lot of people don't realise about, the Church of England has a lot of money in terms of where it right at the top and held, but there are a lot of stakeholders involved, and that money is tied up a lot in our building, so it's asset rich, but sort of on the ground level, everything that happens in our church, in our parish, is funded by the people that are part of that parish. So there's no kind of like external handout from some kind of big church up above that kind of goes, oh, here's money to do this. Sometimes there's grants and things that we can apply for, but it's the hard graft of people within that parish to kind of make that happen, and that can be quite hard work in itself doing that. So then when you've got like one vicar that's looking after, say, 5 different parishes, I think it's a tough call to say you've got to grow those churches if you've literally spreading yourself. So
it's barely a day a week going to each. If they've got 9 was the example, and that's like twice a month they're going to get.
That's right. And some of those churches can't have weekly services because it's just impossible. But then a lot of those communities are supported by lay readers and retired priests and things who become part of those kind of teams. So it's not necessarily just one vicar managing that amount of churches. That have quite, in some places, will.
So would they have one of you as well, like that's training and doing
They
that?
might, yeah. Some might have a curate, but there will definitely a lot of lay readers work in large benefices, which is a sort of lay post, voluntary post. I used to be a reader before I got ordained. So I was a reader. I was in a benefice of 2 in Watchet and Willerton. And then before that I was in Birmingham where I was in a benefice of 3. So I worked across all the churches. So I think those churches definitely need to have that kind of support, and that's how they continue to run.
I'm going to be nosy now. So how did you go to university, or did you not have to do that bit?
Did I go to university? I trained originally as a youth worker. That was my background. So I trained at the YMCA College in London as a youth worker back in 94, 97. But in terms of and then I've done lots of work in Homelessfield for 10 years in London and Brighton. And then my husband was a vicar in Birmingham. So I worked alongside him and sort of headed up all the children and families and youth work. But in terms of becoming ordained, that was a process. For a long time, I kept ignoring it, and decided to go down the lay route.
Sorry, I know this is a bit of a private question, but are you paid as a lay reader?
No,
what is that?
No.
So that's voluntary.
It's a volunteer role. Okay. Yeah, that you do. No, you're not paid. So I did that for many years, and then.
And what is it?
Basically, you're a minister. Yeah, what is it? Good question.
Because I'm sure everybody's thinking, what the hell is she talking about?
That's right. It's people think you just get up and read about.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. She reads the Bible to everybody.
It's definitely not. Well, I suppose another term, lay minister. In the Church of England, we call it a lay reader, but it's the lay minister. Basically, you can take funerals, you can lead services, you can't preside. There's various things. There's a priest that you can't do, but you can take services. I mean, different priests, different lay readers have different focuses. So when I was in Watchet, there was one lady who funeral ministry was her thing, so she did a lot of funerals. My thing was children and families work, so I focused on that. So it depends where you feel your giftings are, really. But you can, and a lot of lay readers do manage a lot of parishes in rural areas. So you can do like service of the word and things like that, but you couldn't lead, you can't preside at communion and things like that.
I don't know what that is either.
No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking my face just...
It's a bit like therapy language, isn't it? You get stuck into that mode. Well, it's like you with IT. You
that's
talk about stuff like
I mean, it's interesting. When I was ordained, so I went through a process, 2 years at college, and then I was ordained as a deacon, and really couldn't do any more than what I do as a reader. But it sort of builds up, doesn't it? It's
almost like you've just got the certificate, right? Like it sounds like
that. But there's just different things.
Once you've got your piece of paper, because you've been at college for 2 years, because you forgot to slip that in before, you then become a deacon.
Yes, I was ordained as a deacon.
You're ordained. But do they decide to do that once you've got your piece of paper?
So what you do, there's a long process, a
very
selection
long
process.
So you're selected to go to college?
Once you feel a sense of, am I being called to explore ordained ministry?
Okay.
There's a long process that you go through, lots of meetings and kind of interviews and panels and things that you do, just all to kind of test that sense of calling.
You have someone that journeys, they're called ADDO for better word, and they journey with you. They journey with you for about
So they hold your hand, watching you and support
you. Questions and support you. And then when they feel you're ready, then they will put you forward for selection. I was right at the beginning in Bath and Wells. I was the first person to go through they've just developed a new system to try and make it more accessible, because I think a lot of people felt the whole process was just not accessible to people. So they developed a new 2-stage kind of thing where you do a carousel, an online carousel.
So many words. So
basically 6 mini interviews on Zoom, talking at different aspects of.
And do you have to know all about the Bible at that stage?
Well, you just know. It's just different things about what you feel your call is, what about the Church of England, your relationship with God. There's different qualities that you have to explore.
So you go to college. So once you get
accepted,
the bishop says yes. I think that I'm going to recommend you for training. Then you go and go to a college, and sometimes they recommend where. I was
going to say, is it like a specialist college, or is it just?
Yeah, it's theological college. So there's lots of different ways that people go and train. So I did residential training. So I moved to Oxford for 2 years with my kids, and we lived there, had a wonderful time in a place that was very much like Hogwarts. the church walks are called in Cuddesdon. And and so once you've done that 2 years or 3 years, depending on what your training entails, you then are able to then get ordained if the bishop says so. And that's when you come back to your diocese, your sending diocese, which for us is Bath and Wells, and then you get ordained, which we did in Wells Cathedral. And then you go and do what Julie's doing, is go and serve a curacy somewhere. And then at the end of that bit, you have to serve
for 3 years. Do you get paid?
As a curate, yes. Yeah.
You do, but you don't get paid for any of the other stuff that you did?
No.
And what about when you were at college?
Yeah, so I did it slightly differently. So I went to Trinity College, which is in Bristol, and I went as a dispersed learner because of my family, which is quite complicated. It's full-time, so it's still full-time, same as residential. But basically I did 3 days in the parish, working and involved and working alongside the vicar there. And then I did 3 days of study, of which one was online all day on a Wednesday. And then 6 times a year you go up to Trinity College for block weeks, Monday to Friday. So And
did you have a day off a week?
Yes, 1 day off a week.
Was that Sunday by any chance?
No, definitely not Sunday. Definitely not Sunday. I think it was Friday when I was training. It was a really good way. I met some brilliant people, and it was a really good way to learn, actually, because you're doing the parish work and you're training alongside. So, and for me and my family, that worked best.
So you're consolidating what you believe, if you see what I'm saying, in your journey through your training and your work in the community, as well as at the same time, because it's all a test, isn't it? Because fundamentally you might get halfway through and think, I really don't want to do this anymore.
And that does happen sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
I have a friend in another diocese who was ordained as a deacon, so did that first year and then just decided during that year, actually, she didn't want to go on and be a priest, so she
stepped out.
Yeah. But it is a long process that takes.
Do you have to pay for the training, or is that?
The church pays for it. Yeah, and they put it through, and that. But I think that's why the selection process is so vigorous, and because it is quite an intense. When you're vocationally, it is intense. Like and you work long hours, and so I think all of that is about sort of testing resilience and sort of whether this is the right thing for you, because you might be like the most faith-filled, wonderful person in the world, but actually it may be that you're not called to lead in the way of an ordained person. But it's an amazing job. Like I absolutely love it. I pinch myself most of the time going, I can't believe I do this, and sort of think, and then go, I can't believe anyone else trusted me to do this. It's really good.
Every day is different, you just never, obviously there are some, Sunday service and things like that, but every day is different.
There's the rituals that go with it, isn't there? There's a level of ritual stuff that you do in church that people quite like because it's familiar. Yeah. And then there's the rituals that you probably have in your own world, where you probably pray in your own way. And
I think there's the sustaining rhythms. And one of the things I actually loved when I went to college, it had a really, there was a bit of a monastic feel about it as well, and that we would have like periods of silence. So you weren't allowed to make noise around the site between the hours of like 9 and 7:30 in the morning. And there was lots of little bell ringings that would signal lunch and breakfast and dinner. I did it in a different order to normal people, but just that rhythm of the day was really, really important. And I think that in terms of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis now, that rhythm is still incredibly important. So we begin our days always with the daily office, which is daily prayer, and then there are different parts through the day when we kind of take the opportunity to pray, and before you go to sleep at night, which is I think a really good practice for anybody, no matter whether you're a person of faith or not, but just to actually think, what am I thankful for those moments in my day? Because I think it is something about with your mental health and sort of spiritually that it is very kind of calming and helps us be a better person. I think just being grateful people generally.
There is I'm a huge advocate of being grateful, and even if it's been difficult, you've got difficult times, still being grateful for those difficult times. But there is that bit, isn't there, where people go, well, you don't know anything about this because your life's never as bad as I am. And touching on mental health, I know you do a lot of support. You support a lot of people, and obviously we do as a charity as well. But it's like that gap, the bit in the middle where like you've got a ritual where you pray or whatever you choose to do, other people don't recognise that they have rituals, and some of those rituals can be quite negative as well, that actually put people in that negative frame of mind, and they forget that at the end of the day you've had something to eat, you've got a roof over your head. Whereas some of the people that you work with don't have a roof over their head. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't always get food in their tummy at night time or daytime or whatever. They might not have 3 regular meals or all of that. And I think bringing that together as a collective, which you do on certain services, or I loved it when I came over and you were having, there's like a community of people over there having something to eat and a nice cake, and these guys over here were having sandwiches and coffee and biscuits, and there was another group over here that were in in fact you were leading a service, weren't you?
That was midweek communion.
And there was that service there, and then there was Mandy and I wandering in, just having a chat. And then I went in the back office and spoke to your colleague, and it was just like that. Do you know what I'm saying? And you think identifying that everybody's different is so vitally important with rituals. You all, like I brush my teeth before I come downstairs, whereas people brush their teeth after their breakfast. I'm a bit weird and I don't do that. But do you know what I'm saying?
I'm the same as you.
Oh, are you? Good girl.
I'm the same as well.
Are you?
Yeah.
And what do you do with your toothbrush?
I brush my teeth after I've had a shower in the morning before I don't eat breakfast. So
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I'm not the best person to... what would I do? I don't know. I probably would brush my teeth after breakfast.
See, I brush my teeth before the shower.
Yeah, I do it after the shower.
A lot of people do it after. I do it before, because I think if you get toothpaste on your face when you then wash your face.
That's a good idea.
And that's only because you're a bloke and get toothpaste all over your face.
See, I think it's too... I have my coffee first.
Okay.
And then I think you can't brush your teeth too soon after you've had coffee.
No.
Tastes foul.
Because that's like horrible, isn't it?
It's funny, but that's the thing, isn't it? We all have rituals.
Absolutely.
And it's like,
People don't always recognise them, do
no,
they? But we all
they
do.
don't.
Yeah.
We all have rituals. And I suppose having those moments when you can reflect on your life in a positive manner, we all have difficult things that have happened to us.
Absolutely,
but it's just identifying that there are good things that happen each day. And if we did take that time just to do that, I mean, in the rehab we do gratefuls. They do gratefuls in the morning. So over the breakfast table, they write their gratefuls, and we have a grateful table where there's all like post-its, and they put it on a big tree, and then it's, it's done every day. Yeah. But I think in the day-to-day running of life, people are busy and they don't necessarily sit back and think, oh, well, I love having Mike in my life. I'd be devastated if he wasn't in my life. Do you know what I mean? He's been part of our lives for a long time, but that's important to me, and I know I'm important to him. Do you know what I'm saying? But unless you actually think about that, here we go. No, but unless you actually recognise that and take that time, you then take things for granted.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm always grateful when he turns up on podcast day, at least 3/4 of an hour before we have to set up, because I get anxious because we've got new equipment and I don't have a clue. Yeah. And I'm grateful that he has a bit more of a clue than I do. So we work together, and I love that. Yeah. I wouldn't want to do this on my own, because sometimes you don't feel emotionally ready to do all of this on your own. So I think it's important to know that you've got a team, and I just love that. And I think recognising that is so important for people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I reflect back on my life, and I think, I grew up in a house where I remember my mum regularly crying because we couldn't put food on the table. And perhaps like my first encounter with church actually was the fact that people from the community where I lived, was the church coming and knocking on the door, leaving a food parcel on the doorstep, and which, to be honest, probably changed our whole lives really, because I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if those people hadn't knocked on the front door and made that connection with my mum. And then she got involved with the sort of local church, and it gave her an opportunity to really kind of flourish in a way that I don't think perhaps that she would have, and sort of took us, I guess, gave us opportunity and a place to dream differently, like to the kind of situation that we were kind of living in at that time. But also I think that's why when you've come from something and you kind of experience things for yourself, you feel, people's lives can change and be different, and you want to journey alongside people. I love our Grubs Up families. Grubs Up is our sort of drop-in for families that come and eat food with us, and we now journey alongside doing a sort of parent group with the parents. But these, like, the kind of parents, I'm like, it reflects back to me a lot of my own childhood, and so I feel really passionate about kind of sort of, particularly when it comes to child poverty, and the disadvantage that puts children at right at the beginning of life before they even enter the education system, that, you know, I want to be part of challenging that injustice and actually sort of seeing change happen and journeying with people in a way that say you can dream bigger dreams for your children, and we can break some of the cycles of things that kind of keep people, you know, kind of living in the same way of life that kind of passes on to their children in terms of there's lots of positive things that we pass on to children, but there's not also negative things that patterns of behaviour that we can kind of pass on without even realising, because like you say, you get so sort of in your own little world sometimes.
You don't know what's normal and what's not normal.
Exactly.
And I was talking to somebody yesterday who's actually been helping me with my health, and she's been absolutely wonderful. I'll get her on the podcast one day, but she's not that way inclined, if you see what I'm saying. But we were talking about the fact that what your norm is as a child, and like if violence is part of your childhood, and it's not until all of a sudden you wake up and somebody goes, that's not okay. You know, and I know from my own story that things that happened to me as a child, I didn't know that wasn't normal until I was in my 20s. You know, and it's like, gosh, that wasn't right what happened to me. And I think a lot of people, young people, unless they have that extension of their family through people like yourself and the church and stuff like that, they don't know. They don't know that it's not. Most parents do go to work, or most parents do have a career, or most parents don't have mental health. Or do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do, and I think in our society it's really, you know, I was speaking at a head teachers conference last week. This is a parish partners conference, looking at how churches and schools work together. But one of the things that I just think is one of the biggest challenges, we're looking at how we try to make the attainment gap smaller between those that are sort of what they term as disadvantaged children to those that are. The problem is that you've got kids going into school from those environments, like you just said, where they might have been experiencing violence, they might be put in social housing where they've got dealers around them, and they're sort of witnessing things that they shouldn't be seeing, and hearing language that is just constantly over and over, that they're being exposed to things that children shouldn't be really exposed to. So they go into like a fight, flight or freeze mode, and that survival mode. And then we kind of put them in a school system where we kind of then expecting that the education system is going to cause them to achieve things which actually, if you're not sorting out those basic needs in the environment that our families and children are in, you're not going to see that change really easily, because it's going to be impossible, because their brains just shut down to that kind of problem solving and that kind of learning. So I think one of the things as churches that we can be doing is really kind of journeying alongside those people within our communities, and understanding that within our sort of wider communities, I guess for want of a better word, you might call them, like we have aunties in our churches, people that spot families or spot people and get alongside them. And we see that all the time. We see people that sort of will see somebody in need, or see somebody that they particularly feel like a big heart for, and they'll journey alongside them, and then through that relationship of trust, they're able to speak into the life of that person and sort of, you know, maybe not literally slap them around the face, but actually speak the home truths to them, and actually then it be heard in a way that, you know, it's not when there's, I guess, necessarily just authorities speaking into those people's lives. But there's so much about trust and relationship and community, and that it's just, I think, we miss quite a lot in our kind of society.
I think a lot of it is about, you know, belonging, as we've just been chatting. I just reminded me of when I grew up in the Baptist church, and my parents were very involved, and my mum and dad used to run this group called YPF, which was Young People's Fellowship, every Tuesday night at our home. And right opposite where we live was huge, you know, when they used to have huge blocks of flats and things, and they used to run a Sunday school right in the middle of there. But anyway, a lot of the children came every Tuesday night, and it was very, I can't remember, it was very simple, just a bit of food and chat and a bit of Bible study. But we met one of the, my dad met one of the families that came, and one of the young people that came a few years ago, and she said, you have no idea what impact that had on me, coming to your house every Tuesday evening and just having that sense of family and sense of belonging. So there is that thing about extended family, and I think for me, church is definitely, it's about a place, and I think that's why a lot of people come, it's about belonging, and you know, because a lot of people don't feel they belong.
No, that's right.
And they don't have that, and it's how do we create that for people, whatever that might look like.
When I was a kid, I had a very weird background, so as you've probably worked out by now, and I went to church. My family didn't go to church, I went to church. So and I attended the drama club and things. When I could go. But I think what's funny is, to most people, if you looked at my background, you wouldn't think, looking at me as a child, that I came from the background that I came from. And I think sometimes it can be missed. People miss that. I had 2 parents sometimes, and sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I had 5 parents or whatever was going on, but people didn't see that. What they saw was this little girl that was turning up to church and doing what she was doing. She was polite and she was kind and everything else like that. They didn't see behind that. And I think sometimes that's having that knowledge, like getting to know people, gives you that knowledge to get behind that and actually then make a difference to people's lives where things are going on that shouldn't be going on. And I think that's what we do as a charity as well, don't we?
Yeah, very much so. I think, we try to engage with people and, support as many people as we can in as many different ways as we can. And one of my questions was you touched on it earlier about people engaging in the church in different ways, and it sounds like you're doing a lot. Are you doing stuff kind of digitally as well, i.e. like social media? Can people watch services online? Is that something that's sort of
we did through COVID. We can't afford it, basically. So we'd love to get some equipment in where we can actually live stream properly. I mean, you can do stuff on Facebook and things, but Facebook shuts stuff down very easily.
Oh, really?
With
Is that
copyright
because
and stuff? It's just as soon as you play music or do anything, and also. Again, coming back to safeguarding and boundaries, you sort of have to be very careful about the permissions that people give you to kind of put their face online and things. But we do we're sort of very present on social media, on our social media channels and Instagram and Facebook. But it's one of the things, actually, I think at our last parish church council meeting that they talked about was looking at putting some equipment in to sort of live stream a bit more, particularly because we do have people that are housebound.
We have quite a few.
And, it's one of the ways that they particularly like to engage. But I think overall, people can now connect in with quite a lot of church services online if they want to connect in with that. But it's not really just about the services. It's the community.
Yeah, I was going to kind of add and say, it's all well and good being able to watch service online, but actually that's a very small part of what you do. Actually, it's the community bit, it's the groups, it's the food, like you talked about, but also it's that human interaction, by the sounds of it, that
absolutely
really matters.
Yeah, and that's why we try and build up our pastoral care team and go and visit people who at one point were very, active members of the church and no longer can be, but we still want them to feel part of that. So connecting in with them, sending them newsletters and things like that, but going to visit as well and having a team that do that. So so everyone feels they belong.
My son, when he got christened up at, I don't know what you call it, up at the church in Shipham, and in fact, his best friend was also christened at the same time, which is quite nice, really. But they were given sponsors from the church, so every single child was given a sponsor from the church. Will had 3, and to this day, he's 35, coming up 36. He still has contact with one of the ladies. The other 2, I believe, have passed away. They have. But they would send him a Christmas card every year. They'd send him a birthday card every year. And he would then, as he became an adult, we would do it when he was a child, but then he did it as an adult, and it has done ever since.
Wow,
and it's
amazing.
really lovely when you think he was a baby. He wasn't even a year old, and that's carried on for over 30 years. And I think it's really important because it keeps that connection. It's a link to your local community, and it's a link to people in the community.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we find a lot is we journey with people through all of these life events. So from births through to marriages to deaths, and you kind of really get to know families, and because you see them at those times when they're most vulnerable and where their emotion is most raw often, and it's a real privilege to do that, and a real joy as well to bring that, I guess, that little sense of rootedness in people's lives. And so we find over and over people come to us and they say, like, oh, my grandparents got married here, or you did my cousin's funeral, or you did this, and we really want that sense of connectedness that they want to be part of. It's really important in our human story, I think.
Yeah, and it's having that. I mean, we got married in the same church as Will got baptised, and he was like, and it was lovely. And I still go to that church. I pop in on the way through if I'm going through the village, and just pop in on the way there or on the way back. Yeah. And it has that kind of familiarity, I think, which is really important. Yeah, absolutely.
Like a phone call yesterday from someone asking if they could be married because their grandparents and dad were buried in the graveyard, and and could they be connected? So they're not people of faith. They wanted to be married there because that was important. And we have to explore that whether that can work. But yes, other things are really important to people.
Yeah, I mean, I've been married twice. I got married in church the first time, and then I got married in church the second time. And for the first time, I was a child really getting married for the wrong reasons, or the right reasons I thought at the time. And on reflection, it probably wasn't the best thing to do, but I did it, and that was fine. And then sadly, that marriage came to an end, which devastated me because I don't believe in necessarily separating from. I like the family unit type thing. Anyway, so then when I went to get remarried, I wanted to get married in church. And that was like, how am I going to do this? I'm divorced. But fortunately, I mean, the Church of England did open their arms and go, yeah, of course we'll marry you. We know the circumstances in which it happened. So yeah, go for it. And I was really grateful for that. And my son got married in church, my eldest son, but my daughter got married, didn't. And it always feels funny to me because I think, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I just feel that that's the place you should be when you come together in union. I'm really traditionalist. I don't necessarily like that about myself. I'm not saying that everybody that gets married in different circumstances aren't married, but it just, for me, it feels really important to have that. You are part of the community. Yeah. And when we got married, we only invited, I don't know, no more than 30 people. The church was full, literally, and they were lining in the streets on the day we got married. It was quite incredible to see it. Yeah. And, we hadn't invited these people. Do you know what I mean?
I wonder if it's something to do with really the belief and our understanding that there is a higher power. Yeah. And I think people, deep down, I think most of us want to believe that we are part of something much bigger than just this, us and just what we go through in it. And I think most people don't want to think that their life doesn't mean anything and that they're just born because it's just a chance that they were born and then they die and then that's it. That they could be no mark of them in history. But I think, as people of faith, that we believe in a higher power, which, we call God. And there's a sense of sense-making because of that we're part of a much bigger story that connects us through time and space with generations gone by, but connects us with our Creator and makes us much part of the bigger story of humanity, where we're all interconnected with one another, and it does matter the way that we treat people and treat each other and live our but also that sense that if we're created by this higher power, this God that loves us and values us, then we've got intrinsic meaning right at the core of who we are, which I think is a really important thing that often we don't think about ourselves. We all have days when we just think we're rubbish people and don't like ourselves and sort of don't value ourselves, but essentially you come back to going, God, actually you created me and you love me and you know me, and that's an awesome thing when you think of the size of this planet and the sort of the extent of time and all of that stuff. So I think it gives me a real sense of hope that there is that kind of that God. And also, I experience God at work in my life. Like there's no doubt about that in a day-to-day living. I wouldn't be the person that I am if it was just like a dead religion. Like, I think there's no point in going to church if you're just going to go on a Sunday and then go home and it doesn't affect your life. Yeah,
it is true that, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's not just presenting yourself as this human being on a Sunday or a day of the week, whatever day it is, and then you go home and you're vile at home. It's about being your best at your best.
On a daily basis.
I think, like I sort of touched on earlier, it would bug me, like if you had someone. We have prayers in church, as you might expect, every single week. And you can pray like really generically for we pray for all people with poor mental health and we pray for the homeless. But if it's just lip service, and this, what's the point in that? We have to practice what we kind of praying. And I think that's, when it comes to prayer, maybe a bit like mindfulness, all of those things, I think it changes us. Not necessarily always changes the circumstance, the situation that we're praying about, but changes us within that situation to perhaps behave differently or live differently within the things that we're facing, which I think is an important thing.
But what you said before about that quiet time, isn't it? It's that quiet time how often do you in your life sit down and just quiet? And that's what I've loved about living here, actually,
Yeah.
because you can sit on the sofa. You don't need to have a phone. I don't need to have my phone anyway. I'm terrible. I never carry it anywhere. I get told off all the time. But you don't have to actually be entertained by anything and just find out where you are in your world. And I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was doing their supervision and they were saying this, that they'd done it in a training day. And I thought, well, that's something I do on a daily basis. It's just, even if it's 5 minutes, you can call it what you like, meditation, reflections, whatever it is, but just doing that is, I think,
so
is
important. But a lot of people don't
grounds
do
you.
it, do
No, they don't.
No, I mean, when we were running one of the parent groups recently, we made some candles. I said, oh, it's Lent. We're talking a bit about Lent. And I said, okay, I'll set you a little challenge. Just light your candle. They took 2 candles home each. Light a candle each day for 5 minutes and, just be still.
Yeah.
And some of them, oh, yeah, I'll do it. And some were like, no chance. I can't do that. I just don't have time, whatever. And I was talking about, how do we create that time just to be still without looking at our phones.
I think when you've got young families, that is probably a bit more tricky to do. But I think I've got a 16-month-old child as well as adult children, and I said to someone the other day, like, they'd be like, where do you get your bit of relaxation? I was like, well, generally, like, I want to go to the toilet. Shut the door and I go, everybody stay out,
Yeah, but sometimes that is the only time that you've got a bit of quiet time for yourself.
In the shower for me when mine were little. Just get in the shower and stuff. But it's interesting going back to what you said about the occasional officers, things like weddings and baptisms and funerals, like how I think sometimes people can't necessarily name it, but somehow I'm amazed that we still have people that, do want to come to the church for baptisms and weddings and funerals, even if they don't necessarily believe or whatever, they somehow want that connection of some kind.
But that's rooted back, isn't it? If we look at history, that's rooted so far back. There's a level of conditioning that we don't even recognise where it comes from, but it is part of that. And being part of a community when you do that, because it's that wider community. And a lot of services now are done, like baptisms are done with the whole church within the service. So they actually come together. There's lots of these little kids that are just, been born and they're now going to have a load of water thrown on their head and scream and shout at everybody. But we're all doing it as a collective, which I think is a symbolism of what the church is trying to do, is just bring people together in a common goal, really, absolutely. In a sense. And I think that's really important. So this time next year, where are you going to be, ladies?
This time next year, where are we? March.
I'll tell you what, this time next year, this year, we've got what's called Holy Week happening next week because we've got Easter's coming. So next week is really busy. So I'm kind of hoping Easter's later next year. This time next year, we won't be quite so busy at this point.
And for me, I'll probably be thinking about where do I go next.
Have you got any ideas as to where that's going to be at the moment?
No, not really.
Do you get much of a choice?
Yeah, and I think that's the tricky bit. I think you could pretty much. I mean, it's like applying for any job. Really, you can go anywhere. I could stay in Bath and Wells. Could go anywhere in the country.
Are you still married and still with your partner?
Sadly, not. I lost my husband 7.5 years ago.
You were quite young.
So very hard. My children were only 15 and 12. Yeah, it's been hard. So I've been on a bit of a journey with all of that. Yeah, I think for me, it's trying to find the right place where I have support and that. Yeah, I don't know. I think at the moment my heart's maybe thinking coastal, but I'm not sure where I came from.
We're thinking very much hot sun,
Caribbean.
I remember vividly when you were asking us earlier about how you got here, and I was in a church. A long, complicated story, but we lost my husband. My daughter wanted to do. Husband had a brain tumour, and she wanted to do. She wanted to raise some money basically for a charity that did research into that. And my children love climbing, and so we did this climbing challenge. And basically, she came up with the idea: 14 days, 14 climbing centres, 14 different places, 140 routes, raised £1,400, whatever. Anyway, we basically went from Plymouth to Edinburgh and climbed in lots of different centres and raised over £7,000. They did amazing. And it was an amazing experience. And we had people coming from all over, put it all out there, people coming all over the country. And some friends of my husband's lived in Helensburgh, just north of Glasgow. I'd never met them, but they were all part of this network, emails that I'm sending out. And they invited us to come and stay with them on the journey. And we went to their church in the morning. My son's going, do we have to go to church? I really don't want to go to church. I said, no, come on, look, they've invited us and we're staying for lunch. So we went. And it was a really cold, grey day, even though it was August. And I remember sitting in the church and just sobbing. And I just had this real sense that God was calling me. And this was at the point where I felt called to ordination. It was to go and work with the people that nobody else wants to work with. We sang this particular song called Inspired by Love and Anger. And it was about, who will go to the places where nobody else wants to go. So wherever it is, that's kind of like the thing, really. So it doesn't matter whether it's coastal, rural, city, whatever.
Will you stay in the UK?
Yes, I think so. I'm not very good at it. My daughter's just French at uni. She'll probably end up in France one day, but she'll go, you could go and get a post in France. Not sure about that. My French is not so good.
I was going to say, no hope for me.
I can order a glass of wine and that's about it.
I can't even do that.
Yes. And I think that's the thing, we're all called to different things, but I think we both have a heart for just being with those on the model, just being in a place where, just where the people don't want to go, wherever that might be.
I think as well, it's an interesting question because I think of sort of thinking what you do this time next year, because I think often we're in a culture which rushes us constantly forward to the next thing. And I guess I'm at a bit of a stage at the moment where I'm just trying to just really be present with, because I think even in the church, it's like people talk about where you going next, what's your next kind of career move, whatever. And it's like, actually, you know what, I just love where I am. I love the people that I'm serving at this time, and just I don't know what the future at the moment looks like, but I don't feel particularly that I need to worry about that. It will become, as it happens, things happen.
I think that's why I find exactly that, because people say, you'll be, where are you going? I say, well, it took me 8 months to get into Bridgewater to be moving. I just want to just be here and enjoy this time, really, and just be present. And I think if I've learned anything, he's my husband. I have a big sign in my dining room. It says, live your life for today, not tomorrow. And I think, and ever since that is how we live. I never used to live in the present. I was either in the past or always planning the future. Not now. It has to be today, because who knows what might happen tomorrow.
A great book is called The Present by somebody, Spencer, I can't remember his last name. And we always get, in the rehab, we get everybody to read it. And anybody that I know, I give it to them and go, read that, because it's a really good book about actually being in the moment where you are.
Oh, is that the one, is it by is it a Christian? Is it like Brother Lawrence?
No, it's not.
Okay.
You're thinking of practicing the presence
of God.
It's not. It's just, and it's cute and it's easy to read. It takes half an hour to read it, but it's definitely worth a read.
But I think as people, we're not really good, are we, at being in the present?
We're not. I think there's a bit in the Bible where Jesus says that we should become like children, and I think one of the things that I love about that is that when you look at kids, like my little boy, he's just, every day is a day of wonder and joy in every experience. He sees a bumblebee for the first time and it's like all he's obsessed with for that kind of like half an hour, and he just wants to sort of chase bumblebees around the garden. And that sort of sense of, you look at the clouds as a kid and you see dinosaurs and I don't know, all sorts of
oh my God, I'm still a child.
That, but I think that there is that children have a way of being in that
they do,
moment.
You're right.
And I think that's why for us becoming more childlike
absolutely
is an amazing thing.
It's a good way of looking at it.
And I know for myself, because I'm obviously in recovery from addiction, and have been for quite a few years, and it's like I'm very much live in the moment. So I really don't care, but I do care about some things, but in a sense, but I don't live it.
Yeah.
I might plan something.
Yeah.
And I'd never go on holiday if it wasn't the fact that I was married to Dave Clark. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I forget what I'm doing the next day, because actually all that matters is the day, today, and that's really where I live.
I'm conscious of time because we've been chatting for quite some time now. So I guess just to wrap up, if people are interested in finding out more about what you guys do or getting involved in either your church or their local church, what's the best way for them to kind of get in touch and find out more?
Well, we think our church is like the best church in the world.
Come to St Mary's in Bridgewater.
There's a website called A Church Near You, which if people want to just look locally where they are, they can go on that, put their postcode in, and it tells them the churches that are around them. You can look at our website, which is marysbridgewater.org, which is a good place to kind of see what all the things that we're doing. Well, all the things that I've managed to update the website that we're doing. We're doing more than that's on there, but that's the problem with social media. You can't keep up with what's happening. But or Facebook, that's probably the best place to find us as well. But yeah, just come and see us. Like pop in the door, have a cup of tea at any point.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, if you're living far away, church near you, that's a good place to start. Or just wander around your local place and just go and see what's going on. And like you say, just wander in.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming
on.
on.
Really appreciate
We'll end it
it.
there.